Hey guys, it's Christian Singh here back from CNH Sponge for another string trimmer homeowner user video here. Basically, I got two machines in front of me right here. One's an Echo and the other one is a homelite. Basically, these are a widespread, or I should say common machines that most homeowners might use or consider thinking about using or owning, possibly whenever they go out and buy a new machine. However, the homelite one right here on the right hand side is a really low quality one. I don't like saying that and telling people it's a cheap machine, but it is. It's a very cheap machine. These things can be had at your local, around my area here in Pennsylvania. They can be had for about $70, $80, depending on which store you can purchase them at. And most time people buy them at the Walmart and stuff like that out there, and because of that, they are a relatively cheap machine. And this guy's machine right here, he actually needed a new carburetor on this one right here, because the guy looked like he had all kind of chalk down inside the gas tank on here, and because of that, it basically ruined the carburetor. And I don't know what he was doing with it, but the guy is, quote, a contractor, and some of the contractors we have dealt with are kind of I don't want to call it wacky people out there. I don't like saying that, but sometimes they're actually worse than a regular Joe right down the road who doesn't have any money, in terms of jerking you around, stuff like that. The second machine over here is the Echo machine. This is 2012, or I think the guy told me the guy told me he bought it in 2012, but I think it may be a 2011, I believe. This is the newer color schematic out there, because the older ones from back in the early 2000s and the late 90s, they were all basically gray on the color, so they switched the color schematic change over on these machines as well. And this guy's machine right here, he also needs a new carburetor. However, he did not want it done because the guy let this thing, I think he let this sit in his garage for a couple of years, and apparently he didn't check the gasoline. The gasoline had water and crap down inside, and he also needed a new carburetor, because the problem is with these Echo machines is the carburetor on these ones, it's a barrel style carburetor they have on these ones right here, and they also are non-adjustable externally on there, which means you can't basically fine tune them to your liking, and therefore that, and that's one of the drawbacks to this specific style of carburetor out here. For that, if you buy like a Husqvarna or a Stihl out there, they have the older style non-barrel carburetor, which I personally like myself, because you can fine-tune them basically to whatever environment you're working at. If you're working like out west, where you have a real high elevation, you can fine-tune for that. If you're working down by the ocean, you can fine-tune for that. You can also fine-tune it for running on richer or leaner gas, and you can also fine-tune it for running in hot or cold or cooler environment, like your springtime, or in the fall time as well too. This one right here is a GT series. Let me flip around here so you can see this, guys. The GT 225 series right there. For that, that's the most common one that we've seen over here in the past. I'd say about 7 or 8 years. It's the most common one they currently make out there for that. And they do run good. I'm not going to knock them and stuff like that. They do run good. And they are a well-built machine, and this guy actually changed out the head and put a one was a brush cutter head style machines on the end, rather than your typical bump head on this one right here, because I think this guy said he got it at a pawn shop secondhand, so that's why he's not the original owner, and he didn't really know anything about this specific machine right here anyway. And the problem is, you buy some at pawn shops out there, you don't get no warranties with them, so be aware of that fact whenever you do buy used equipment. Always make sure the thing runs before you buy it, or if it does have running problems when you do buy it, make a note of it on the transaction sheet, because most pawn shops do not have some kind of a warranty policy or return policy, I should say, to be more specific about used equipment, because by definition used equipment means there's it's not covering any basic warranty from the manufacturer or from the retailer selling the part. And that's basically one drawback if you do buy something secondhand from a place that has that policy. Second machine here, the homelite I was telling you about previous to this. he also needed a carburetor. I think I touched base on that right there as well too. And these carburetors, they're relatively cheap out there. I'd say maybe 15, 20 bucks for these style of carburetors on here. This one actually has a, I think it's a Zama or Walbro. One of these. Let me see what we got on here. It's a nope. I was wrong. Sorry about that. It's a Ruing. It's a Ruing carburetor. And Ruing, it's usually Ruing, Zama, or Walbro that makes the majority of these carburetors out here. Most of the cheaper ones are either Zama or Ruing. This one has a Ruing carburetor. And I believe we bought that thing about a couple months ago for about 15 or 18 bucks, I think, on the parts retailer online. I basically buy all my parts directly from the manufacturer, and you can get quite a few discounts if you're a business and anything else. You can save on shipping, handling, and tax and stuff like that as well too. So that was actually cheap to repair for that specific unit right there for that. And these second ones, these Echo ones, these ones, unfortunately, the newer ones, as this one is right here, I believe they're made in China, I think. Yeah, here we go. It says right in the bottom down here, assembled in China. It says right, stamped right on the tag right there by the it says Yambarco Corporation. I believe these things were originally made by the Quartz Corporation a few years back, but I think they either changed the company, or the old company got bought up, or they sold off the assets. I really don't know which one, whatever happened there, but they are now making these things over in China on there because of that. And because of that, sometimes the quality slips, and you don't have the same high quality machine you might have had 3, 4, 5 years ago, or the last time you purchased a machine there for that. So that's basically a rundown of the two more common ones out there on the market, the Echo and the homelite. The Echoes are usually bought at your Home Depot or Lowe's and stuff like that, one of your higher end big box stores that they call them. And the homelites, the red homelite right there, is usually bought at your local Walmart or some of your other local hardware stores like Busy Beaver, or I'm trying to think what else might be around the area, like Ace Hardware or something like that. So that's basically a review of a low entry level one, which is the homelite obviously, and the Echo, which is a more we're going to call it medium commercial style machine out there for that, because they're usually built to a better standard out there for that. We actually had a guy's machine over here about 3 years ago. He had an old 90, I think it was about a 96 or 97 machine. It was a gray color schematic Echo, and the guy said he used it every year for probably from like April through I think October, at least once a week. I think still run like a champ. And I asked him, well, what were you doing to make it run so good? He said, I just put Opti tube mix in there and run it full blast all the time, and keep the air filter clean and keep the gasoline clean, and it should run. I should say it should run great for the rest of its life, basically, because it's all about maintenance with your two strokes out there for that. You have to run full blast out there, make sure your gas is always clean, make sure your air filter is always kept clean and stuff like that. You don't want any debris getting sucked down inside there, because we've seen so many machines that are damaged because people's lack of judgment and maintenance that are on these machines out there, where you can take a typical $70 machine, the homelite, and basically just do the basic maintenance on there and run it full blast, and don't beat or abuse it out there, and it can last 10 or 15 years out there as long as you maintain it and you keep it nice running and stuff like that. And I seen older homelites from like back in the 80s were still running because the old fork that actually had it basically kept it clean, ran it okay, and didn't abuse it out there, and because of that they lasted quite long. So it's all it comes down to, how you run the machine, how you maintain it, and how you treat it out there when you're using it out there. If you don't treat it any good, it ain't gonna last. If you treat it pretty good, it should last a long time, as long as there's no manufacturer's defects, anything else excluding stuff like that. But as long as you maintain them and keep them running good, they should last, I mean, 10, 15 years out there, because most of these two strokes are meant to be ran at full speed the whole time. in order for them to run properly. And by doing that, you keep the cylinder clean, because two strokes, they run a lot dirtier than a four-stroke engine because of their design. So if you just like you're puttering around your yard, you tend to clog up your exhaust on the exhaust side and possibly damage your cylinder, because some of that carbon can possibly fall back into the engine and screw up your cylinder. So that's why it's always recommended to run at full speed all the time, every time you use them out there, to avoid any type of damage, because that's what they're designed for. That's the optimum setting whenever they're being used out there for that. So if anybody has any questions, comments, whatnot, just email me here and leave me a message on my page here, and I'll try to answer any basic questions you guys have. I'll see you guys.